Oh, good morning. You catch me here, um, again taking a break after having worked a couple hours. I'm working again from home, and it's been quite hot this week. It's been in the mid 90s and high 80s almost all week, and quite warm at night, so never a chance to cool down. And today it's actually quite cool this morning, so I'm a little dressed down, have a few less layers on this morning, and have all the windows open and everything, so enjoying the coolness this morning. Well, let's see. A couple weeks ago, we met last time, and I read some Virgil, and we talked about just being out of doors, and we had read from his Georgics, which handles farming and again being out of doors as well. And we talked about just the enjoyment of being outside and being in one's garden and that sort of thing. Since then, well, I don't know if it was right before that or right after that, but my family and I took a holiday and we went to the beach over on the coast. Where else would a beach be, I suppose? So we went there, and so since coming back, I just haven't been able to quite get my mind out of the ocean, as it were. This last weekend, we had a birthday party for my oldest son, and it was beach themed. And congratulations to my wife for really throwing a splendid party. I think everyone enjoyed themselves, and she did very well on the decorations and everything, decor and all of that. So, but I've been thinking again about the sea, and I remembered I hadn't picked this up for, it's been probably close to a year, maybe not that long, might be too long, but it's been quite a while since I picked this up. I've had this book, The Complete Works of Brambley Hedge, that little series. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. But I had forgotten about, there are different stories as each of the books. There's a story for each season, a summer story, a fall story, a winter story. And then there are a handful of other just stories about different topics. And one of them is a sea story. And I was actually just flipping through this morning because it has really fantastic illustrations from the author. And here we have this really fantastic ship that the family has. And they load up and set sail down the river to the sea for supplies, and they spend some time there at the beach, and then they sail back. But just looking at the ship and just kind of reading about the ocean again is really quite pleasant. This one is great, fantastic. Them just sitting here below decks at night, eating and enjoying the warmth and being out of the wind and everything like that. That just looks so cozy and homely. If I had significantly more money, or had perhaps never married, I might live on a ship. And if I had significantly more money, we might still live on a ship. It would just have to be quite big, which means I'd have to have quite a bit of money. But that would be quite the adventure. So anyway, the family takes a trip down to the sea, and they have adventures there with their children, which I think is so much fun. You have these people my generation calling themselves dinks, dual income, no kids, which I really think is, I know some people can't have children, and that's a travesty, and we of course pray for them and keep them in our thoughts, and but many choose not to, and it's really quite a shame because children add so much adventure to your life. It's easy to think of all the ways in which children are inconveniences, but ultimately If you think children are rewards and blessings, why would you not want children around? And at what point do you say, no more blessing, no more reward? It just seems so silly to me. So anyway, I just like that a lot of these, or all of these stories involve children directly, or the children are tagging along on adventures with parents and aunts and uncles and that sort of thing, and just family life is an adventure, and it's so well depicted here. So I was thinking about that and flipping through that, and thought you might enjoy some of that. I have also been reading with my son Wind in the Willows, which I've mentioned several times. And I have, which I really think anyone who has a copy of Wind in the Willows, you really ought to have a copy with the shepherd illustrations, which I believe were the original illustrations. Of course, you'd recognize all of them probably. Try and find one here. Here's Mole lost in a dark wood, like Dante. My wife and I are also reading the comedy. So I really think if you have Wind in the Willows, you ought to have one with the E.H. Shepherd illustrations. But this reading, I got this really nice new copy that you haven't seen yet, but it has new watercolor illustrations by Chris Dunn. It is really quite new. I believe he just did this in the last 5 years. So since 2020, he had been working on it for quite some time, and anyway, and he had finally finished it and got it published. A new edition published. So anyway, we'll just kind of show you some of these here, but here's, Ratty's boat, and I take one issue. I think Ratty's boat is described as being white on the outside and blue on the inside. I'm fairly certain that he has it depicted the other way around. But I suppose that's all right. We can forgive him that, because these are really quite excellent. Here's Ratty and Mole in the boat there. Anyway, my son and I are still reading through this, and we just started the chapter, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. And I thought reading some of that might be fun. And I'll show you some of the illustrations here. And as you remember, it begins with Mole and Rat enjoying just a cool evening after a hot day, and they're talking about the otters. And Portly has gone missing. Portly, who so often runs off and turns back up at various times, he's gone missing, and Otter's been searching and looking for him, and Ratty says that Otter is going to go sit at this spot all night by himself, hoping and waiting and praying for Portly to show up, because he's been missing for quite some time. And so Mole and Rat decide that, well, we can't just do nothing. And so they decide that they're going to go out that night as well and search for Portly. And of course, the adventure unfolds from there. Let's see. Okay, so we'll start here. And I'll show you this illustration here of them in the boat there, and Rat taking the skulls. They got the boat out, and the Rat took the skulls, paddling with caution. Out in midstream, there was a clear, narrow track that faintly reflected the sky. But wherever shadows fell on the water from bank, bush, or tree, they were as solid to all appearance as the banks themselves, and the Mole had to steer with judgment accordingly. Dark and deserted as it was, the night was full of small noises, song and chatter and rustling, telling of the busy little population who were up and about, plying their trades and vocations through the night till sunshine should fall on them at last and send them off to their well-earned repose. The water's own noises, too, were more apparent than by day, its gurglings and cloops more unexpected and near at hand, and constantly they started at what seemed a sudden, clear call from an actual articulate voice. The line of the horizon was clear and hard against the sky, and in one particular quarter it showed black against a silvery, climbing phosphorescence that grew and grew. At last, over the rim of the waiting earth, the moon lifted with slow majesty till it swung clear on the horizon and rode off, free of moorings. And once more they began to see surfaces, meadows widespread and quiet gardens, and the river itself from bank to bank, all softly disclosed, all washed clean of mystery and terror, all radiant again as by day, but with a difference that was tremendous. Their old haunts greeted them again in other raiment, as if they had slipped away and put on this pure, new apparel, and come quietly back, smiling as they shyly waited to see if they would be recognized again under it. Fastening their boat to a willow, the friends landed in this silent silver kingdom, and patiently explored the hedges, the hollow trees, the runnels, and their little culverts, the ditches and dry waterways. Embarking again and crossing over, they worked their way up the stream in this manner, while the moon, serene and detached in a cloudless sky, did what she could, though so far off, to help them in their quest, till her hour came and she sank earthwards reluctantly and left them, and mystery once more held field and river. Then a change began slowly to declare itself. The horizon became clearer, field and tree came more into sight, and somehow with a different look. The mystery began to drop away from them. A bird piped suddenly and was still, and a light breeze sprang up and set the reeds and bulrushes rustling. Rat, who was in the stern of the boat while Mole sculled, sat up suddenly and listened with a passionate intentness. Mole, who with gentle strokes was just keeping the boat moving while he scanned the banks with care, looked at him with curiosity. "It's gone," sighed the rat, sinking back into his seat again. "So beautiful and strange and new. Since it was to end so soon, I almost wish I had never heard it, for it had roused a longing in me that is pain, and nothing seems worthwhile but just to hear that sound once more and go on listening to it forever. No, there it is again," he cried, alert once more. Entranced, he was silent for a long space, spellbound. "Now it passes on, and I begin to lose it," he said presently. "Oh, Mole, the beauty of it, the merry bubble and joy, the thin, clear, happy call of the distant piping. Such music I never dreamed of, and the call in it is stronger even than the music is sweet. Row on, Mole, row, for the music and the call must be for us." The Mole, greatly wondering, obeyed. "I hear nothing myself," he said, "but the wind playing in the reeds and rushes and osiers." The rat never answered, if indeed he heard. Rapt, transported, trembling, he was possessed in all his senses by this new divine thing that caught up his helpless soul and swung and dandled it, a powerless but happy infant, in a strong, sustaining grasp. In silence, Mole rowed steadily, and soon they came to a point where the river divided, a long backwater branching off to one side. With a slight movement of his head, Rat, who had long dropped the rudder lines, directed the rower to take the backwater. A creeping tide of light gained, and now they could see the color of the flowers that gemmed the water's edge. Of course, from there they hear it increasingly louder and follow it, and if you haven't read it, you'll have to read it for yourself, but if you have, you know how that ends. So yeah, I've been just enjoying reading about water being by the sea, and that's not quite the sea, but something about being on the water and being called. Quite interesting. So thank you for stopping around and sitting with me for a few minutes. And I hope it's nice and cool and refreshing where you are, because it really is quite nice this morning. But I perhaps ought to get back to it. Thanks for stopping around. We'll see you next time.